Every damn day.
Hello everybody. It's Jerry at the Fledge, and welcome to another episode of Every Damn Day. Seems like I should be calling it every damn other month or something like that because I'm not doing it every day. But from time to time, if you want to come do an episode, let's do it. And that's exactly what our good friend Luna has done today. And they are going to talk about adult foster care. How you doing today, Luna?
Doing okay.
Yeah. How would you like to lead into this?
Well, I guess I'll talk a bit about how I ended up in adult foster care, so I'm autistic. I have kind of a plethora of mental illnesses. I've been hospitalized a lot for my mental illnesses, and also have some medical issues, and this kind of laundry list of diagnosis. He's ended up kind of making me go into adult foster care at a couple different points in my life, just to try and get some extra help I needed at the time. And I don't know, there were some pros and cons to it, but I'd definitely say more cons than pros.
Can I ask? What does adult foster care look like? I think that people might have an image of what foster care for kids looks like. What is adult foster care or what does adult foster care look like?
They're more commonly called group homes. It's usually in the community, and it usually involves there actually there's different types of adult foster cares, and they're divided up basically depending on the type of issues the people inside them are dealing with. So there are adult foster cares specifically for people with physical health issues. There's adult foster cares specifically for people with mental illness. There's adult foster care specifically for people with developmental disabilities. And then there's ones that are kind of mixed homes that involve kind of multiple issues, either co-occurring or just grouped together, the different people grouped together. The ones I was in usually had about 4 or 5 people living in them at a time, though there are larger foster care homes as well.
Do they look like a house?
They're generally just converted houses, basically. Usually you're sharing bedrooms too. Most of the time you're going to be 2 people to a room. Though there are exceptions for that. There's ways to kind of get out of that and get single rooms, but most of the time you're going to be doubled up. They're usually just regular houses in the community. That you probably live around an adult foster care home and don't even know it.
Okay.
They're all over in the community.
And you've been in them a couple of times?
Yeah,
several
twice.
times? Twice. And you told me earlier you want to kind of share your lived experience with that. Jump into that if you'd like.
Well, the first time I was in an adult foster care home was back around, I think it was around like 2012 or so. I lived in one out in Okemos. It was a really fancy, kind of typical Okemos house, pretty high end. At that time, I was lucky enough to qualify for a single room due to some of the issues that I had. Won't go into too much detail, but it was owned by an immigrant family from Ethiopia. And the caretaker of the home was actually one of their relatives who didn't get paid jack shit and lived in there with her kid. and basically just lived here on a visa while taking care of us, never leaving the house 24/7, which isn't an uncommon situation to find in group homes. A lot of immigrant families will actually run group homes, and they'll often take advantage of relatives by bringing them here on a visa and giving them a job. Only, except the job is basically you're forced into this home, stuck here 24/7, not allowed to leave, taking care of these people. It's a relatively simple job. There isn't a lot to it. I mean, mostly what they're doing for us, they might do our laundry, they make us meals, and they pass our meds. That's the bulk of what they do for us, at least in the ones I was in, which are kind of I don't like to use the functioning terms, but like higher functioning individuals, less support needs.
Okay.
That would be a better way to phrase it. The people in the ones I lived in had less support needs than some other homes. But yeah, the person who was taking care of us, technically, she was never really allowed to leave the home. So lived there 24/7 with her little brat 3-year-old. Which living in group homes is how I learned I hate living with kids.
So it's like a 14-year-old brat now, because that was about 11
Yeah,
years
probably.
ago. Okay.
Yeah, but she ended up she was there for a while, and then her visa ran out, and she was sent back to Ethiopia. And at that point, the actual owners of the home had to take over and do some actual work.
So in that situation, do they take control of your finances? And
you really don't have much in the way of finances when you're living in an AFC home. Like I live on disability. I have pretty much since around 2010. I've been on disability. And when you go into an AFC home, basically all your Social Security is going towards paying rent on that place. Plus, they get an extra chunk of money from the state, so they're making honestly pretty good money. I don't know exactly how much they make, but it's definitely over $1,000 a month off you to have you share a bedroom with someone, basically. But like you have no finances. They take every cent you have and leave you with an allowance, which is about $40 a month. And that covers that $40 a month has to cover anything that isn't covered by the AFC, which can be a lot.
Yeah,
actually.
Well, and can you smoke? Can you?
Technically, you can smoke, and most of those, though, a lot of them discourage it and will try and get you to quit. But the issue with that too is trying to afford smoking on $40 a month.
That's what I was going to say. That's about 4 days for me.
You can't drink at all. You can't smoke weed or do anything like that.
So are you confined?
You're not like trapped there technically. You have rules and restrictions, but you're not locked in. But you often have curfews, and I mean it's kind of like living as a kid. You have to be back by dark or by a certain time, unless you have permission to leave for the night.
Yeah. So, let's keep going with that particular house. What were some of the things that were horrible? We know about the brat kid. We know about you basically watching someone get exploited or become an indentured servant.
Honestly, that one was the better of the two houses too. There are certain issues that have come up. That owner in particular, I know, has gotten caught basically trying to force religion on people. And I found this out through other homes that she runs.
Yeah.
She would hang like crosses all over the home and stuff. And eventually she did get in trouble for that when she took in a Jewish client, and she was like forced to take down all the crosses and stuff around the house. But that home in particular, I honestly, like, compared to the other home, didn't have that many issues with. I mean, I had like, I saw some exploitation. I saw kind of some of the flaws of the AFC home system, but nothing compared to what I saw in the second home.
Do you want to go into the second home?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the second home, I moved into that. It was about 6.5, 7 years ago. I moved in there. It was honestly right after I had been sexually assaulted by someone, and then my roommates decided to move in the person who sexually assaulted me and make that person our roommate. At which point I kind of just lost it and just kind of gave up on life and decided to move back into an AFC home. So I moved into an AFC home. I wanted to escape from Lansing because I was pissed off at Lansing and kind of blamed Lansing. And I lived on the east side at the time, and I don't know, I kind of just blamed kind of the mentality in the community for what happened too, because it involved quite a few community members that I knew.
Okay.
So I ran away from Lansing basically to an AFC home in Weberville, in the middle of fucking nowhere.
You're probably the only trans person to ever leave Lansing to go to Weberville. I think it's usually
I wasn't out at the time.
Oh.
And honestly, that move kept me in the closet even longer. Like I had been kind of exploring my like gender a little bit and questioning it a bit, but I had some very negative friends who honestly pushed against me coming out as trans and kind of pushed me into the closet further. And then I moved to Weberville in this house, and the living with the people that I lived with, like, made me go way into the closet. Like the people who owned the home knew I was queer technically, but like they didn't know hardly anything about it. And like I didn't really open up about it in the home or anything. It was the guy who owned the home was very much most likely a Trump or Proud Boy now, but he believed in men's rights, and he was an activist for men's rights among other things.
All right.
And yeah, it wasn't really a great situation. But originally it wasn't ran by him. It was ran by one of his friends who he was exploiting, much like the person in the first house. So this person was technically a friend of his who got paid $300 a month to live with us full time. And basically just, he considered it like room and board was her pay. And she literally got to live there with us and got a $300 allowance to live with us and take care of us full time.
It sounds like for these things to work for people, for them to optimize their profit, there's exploitation in both of your...
And there doesn't have to be, because they're getting paid enough to run it legitimately. If these were being ran as like family homes, much like child foster care, I mean, there's plenty of exploitation in child foster care as well. But like if these were being like forced to run like family homes, and the people who owned it were the ones that were forced to take care of us, it wouldn't have to be exploitative. Yeah. They're making plenty of money off of us.
When they have kid foster care,
mm-hmm.
There's always a, if the parents have lost custody temporarily, there's always kind of an end game where you're either trying to get that kid back reunited with their parents or their family, or you're trying to get them adopted, or the system is. What's the end game in the adult foster care?
We're abandoned.
Abandoned.
Yeah. We're typically sometimes families are still involved and still visit and stuff like that, but often it's people being abandoned by their families who can't or don't want to take care of them anymore.
And are the ages, like, do people live out their life in adult
Yeah.
foster care?
Yeah, and you find all ages. Often you'll sometimes find homes grouped by age, and you'll find a lot of times people do try and get placed into a home that is more in their like peer age range, but that can be hard to do at times. Often there's a months-long waiting list to get into an AFC home, so you have people just trying to get you into whatever one they can as quickly as possible. So that doesn't always happen. And talking about the trans issue, when I went in, like I wasn't really out at all yet. I'm kind of glad I wasn't. At the time, because I would have been scared if I was, because there is a lot of mistreatment of trans people in the AFC setting, and typically like a trans female will have to go in an all male foster home, because most of these foster homes are segregated by sex. And they will generally not let you in with your gender, but by sex. So if you're trans female, you're going into an all male home. If you're trans male, you're going into an all female home. I actually had a friend from one of my recent hospital stays who was currently living in an all female foster home, and they were a trans male, and the other females in there were constantly making stuff up. They were very transphobic. Out in Leslie, very transphobic people living in the home with them were often making false accusations against them because they were the only trans male in the home.
Yeah. So what do you get any services in addition to what, like, I don't know.
Not really, not outside of what the AFC home provides. The last one I was in, I was actually getting services prior to going into the AFC home. I was getting about 5 or 6 hours of community living support a week, which is someone who comes into the home and helps you out. And that got completely cut off when I went into the AFC home. And since I've gotten out, they've refused to re-implement it. We're actually, like, me and some of my like support people are trying to advocate for me to get some of those back, because like I did a lot better having a support person. But it's been, I've kind of been begging for them for 6 years now. And with no luck from CMH.
Well, continued failures of our entire mental health system, whether it's CMH or just how it works in general, what insurance covers.
Yeah.
Who has the authority to put somebody, because can you voluntarily do it?
Like I was technically voluntary the 2 times I did it. I would never go voluntarily again between the 2 experiences I had. The last time I only did it like literally out of desperation and despair. And you do see people going involuntarily, but a lot of times you'll also see people being court ordered into AFC homes, in which case they can't leave. they have to get the court's permission to move out of the AFC home.
You could have at any time got up, moved out, and went somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's what I ended up doing. Like, eventually, after experiencing quite a bit at that last home, the last home, it was a mess. I didn't have a single room that time. I was in a double room. My roommate, thankfully, though, was in a nursing home most of the time I lived there. But they tried moving him back at one point, basically while he was actively dying. So they tried to move an actively dying person into my room with me, which just kind of freaked me out, like, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
And like I ended up sleeping out in the living room like days in a row until they eventually realized they couldn't take care of him there and moved him back to the nursing home he was in. But yeah, it was a bit messed up. And yeah.
What's the change you want to see? What do you think could improve this?
For one, like, people need a bigger living allowance is one big thing. You can't live off $40 a month, especially when, again, a lot of your costs aren't covered. Like, sometimes, like, some AFC homes, like, the cost of your, like, shampoo and soap aren't even being covered by the AFC. So you're having to buy that yourself out of that tiny measly $40 you get each week. The last one I was in had a guy who wet the bed, and they made him buy his own briefs because Medicaid doesn't cover for just enuresis. They only cover like the cost of briefs if you are wetting in the daytime too. So he was responsible for the cost of all his own medical supplies, which, yeah, like one bag of briefs is like almost $20. Like, that's half his month's supply, and that's not even enough to cover him for the month.
So what do people do?
They use their money on that, and they have no money left over.
Is that like a state mandated? Who decides that $40?
I'm not 100% sure on that one, but that generally seems to be what the living allowance is.
So on the first every month, they handed you $220s or something like that, or
basically, or your pay if you had a pay, which I had a pay at the time.
Okay.
So my pay would give me a check. I think he broke it up into weekly checks for me. When I had the pay at the time. So I was getting like weekly $10 checks.
Okay.
Which I had to somehow figure out a way to cash while living in the middle of nowhere in Weberville. And
that seems difficult.
And couldn't really spend easily. Oh, I racked up a lot of debt. Like, most people aren't their own guardian a lot of people aren't their own guardian when they're in that situation. I was, which was kind of both fortunate and unfortunate, in that, like, they couldn't stop me from getting credit cards and stuff like that. So when I was in the last AFC home, I honestly took out a credit card and racked up debt, which I'm still paying off today.
Damn. So what, I hear a lot of things like, if you've got a family member, it sounds like it might be that first step of an abandonment, right? You're going to put them in this adult foster care. Yeah. You're going to come visit them, once a month for a little bit, and then it kind of just goes away.
That's the common trend.
What alternatives would you suggest for families?
I think there needs to be just some new systems in place. Like, we need better facilities, for one. I would honestly prefer, like, not a nursing home exactly, but honestly, like, an actual, like, center, like, for people to live, like some sort of, like, apartment complex that like has like a dorm type meal set up, and just something where that's more like a community. um a lot of these foster homes, like, yeah, you're stuck with the people you live with, and they're often the only people you socialize with too, which can
Yeah.
be very lonely. And
Are there groups out there that you think are doing a good job of kind of managing the system and process?
I mean, I'm sure there are some decent group homes out there.
Mhm.
I haven't seen them personally. They're not the majority for sure. But I mean, if someone wants to go into adult foster care, has the money to start the home, has the right intentions, they can do it well. There's still going to be some flaws to it, just because there's some systematic flaws to begin with. Um, but like you can manage a home well, and like actually provide for these people and treat them like family. And a lot of the owners think that's what they're doing,
Mm.
when they're not. Like the last home I was in, like that's literally kind of the mentality the guy who owned it had, was that he was our family, and that he was, but it was clear he didn't actually like follow that mentality. Like he had it in his head, but he wasn't actually following through with it.
Mm.
At one point, he actually tried to file for guardianship for me, to put me under guardianship, and he wanted to become my guardian. Um, and then as soon as he realized that, oh, I'm not going to be able to like bill you and take your money if I'm your guardian, he no longer wanted anything to do with it. You know.
So as we kind of wrap up in the next few minutes here, what's your big message? What is it? Don't go into adult foster care? Is it we need to be fighting and
Speak
advocating?
if you
Yeah.
are going to go into adult foster care, and I won't say don't, because there's situations where people have to, and you don't have other options. But be very cautious of the home you go into if you are going into adult foster care. But also, like, we definitely need to advocate for something better in our communities, and we need to somehow make the system less exploitative, and not even just towards the people in it, but like the people working it. Like, there are a lot of workers in the AFC homes getting exploited, and that leads to burnout and disgruntled employees who end up mistreating the clients because of it. So we need to really make sure that employees at these AFC homes too aren't getting mistreated, because that will come back to onto the residents.
So when your objective of running a business is to maximize your profit, and then you privatize these types of things and make them less as social benefits, I guess, that we all should be contributing to, then people get exploited, and we're doing it all for the wrong reason once again.
Yeah.
Late stage capitalism, we're
Yeah.
dying.
I mean, they're most of these owners are no better than crooked landlords. They share a lot of features in common with crooked landlords.
Sounds like there's a big intersection there.
Mm-hmm.
You got this house, and how can I make the most money out of it?
Except they're exploiting people who are being court ordered into it often, and have no choice and no way to escape.
You think the courts know this?
The courts know it. Most of the mental health system knows it. Anyone who's worked with the AFC system knows this.
Is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
I don't know, like, keep just like be aware of what's going on in our mental health system, like, and keep fighting to change it, because there are a lot of changes that need to be made, both in the AFC system, in the hospital system, just kind of all around. And yeah, just keep an eye on it and be aware of it, and don't stay silent when you see it.
Do not close your eyes to this suffering and speak out against this injustice. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with us, Luna. And anytime you want to come and talk about stuff, please let us know. Shannon is asking who regulates the homes, or what is an AFC kind of responsible for reporting or inspections, etc. Is this Lara?
I don't remember the name of the actual regulating agency, but there are people who do like license and regulate the homes.
Yeah.
But again, there's certain aspects of that aren't being regulated. Like employment, honestly, isn't really regulated within the AFC homes.
They're just inspection, fire
They're
alarms
physical inspections and stuff like that. And honestly, shit like making sure residents aren't smoking weed. And like I got bitched out a lot for that one at my last AFC home, because I did sneak in weed occasionally. And I would get bitched out every time he smelt it on me, but he didn't end up actually doing anything about it. But there's definitely regulating agencies, but they're mostly looking at safety features and stuff, like making sure the fridge has a lock on it so that people can't sneak into the fridge at night and shit like that. Like it's some of it seems kind of weird, honestly, if you go into an AFC home. Like that one always weirded me out. There's always a lock on the fridge, and I mean, I get it, but at the same time, like, I don't know, like, treat us like adults would be nice. Like,
and to answer all your questions, Shannon, I'm pretty confident that it is Lara, the Licensing and Regulatory Authority, and I believe you can do a search on group homes there, but I'll look into that and post something later. And also, Shannon saying you're the advocate. You are a great advocate for mental health and for a lot of different issues that we have and that are hurting our community and our society quite bad. So we all love you very much, Luna. That's going to wrap for another Every Damn Day. And we'll see you again when someone feels like coming on Every Damn Day. Talk to y'all later.